In this video, I'm going to be explaining to you how chess players actually calculate in different positions and how they come up with plans. So I'm going to tell you the 3 things that chess players think about in every position. And when I say every position, of course, you don't have time to always think about these 3 things, but the better you become at chess, the better you become at recognizing when it's important to think about this and what moments of the game are you facing a critical moment. And I'll talk a little bit about that too, but this is just going to be an educational video where I hope that you leave being better at chess than what you are right now. So the 3 things that every chess player thinks about in a critical position are short-term plans, long-term plans, and the 3 critical moves. And I'm going to explain all of this to you and teach you how to come up with these things. So let's look at this game that I played in Minorca Open. I was facing a very strong player, Giovanna Rapport. She's rated 2200 now approximately, but she's been way over 2300 and she's a very strong player. She's also the wife of Richard Rapport, who's a super grandmaster, so I'm sure she's getting great preparation at home. But here, she played the move f4 in move number 15. And I realized that this was a critical moment. Why did I realize that? Well, because she's already kind of starting an attack against my king. I could see that her plans are going to be to go e5, and if she can, e4, and then she's going to very quickly be able to bring all her minor pieces towards my king. And so I just knew now that when this attack is starting to happen, this has the potential of going very fast and very quick. So I started thinking about these different things. The first thing I was thinking about is, okay, so what is my short-term plan? Well, my short-term plan, I thought, was, of course, to save myself from any attack, stop this attack that she has right now, and try to just make sure that my king ends up being safe. So I knew instantly, okay, this is the number 1 thing that I need to do right now. Then I realized that my long-term plan in this position is to be able to trade off basically all the pieces, and then because she's been so focused on playing on the king side, try myself to get a queen side attack. Try myself to get this push right here. Why do I want to make this move? Well, I cannot make this move right now because, of course, she has several pieces that are right now defending this square. But the reason I really want to do this is because if I am able to get a position where basically these pawns are exchanged, like let's imagine these 2 pawns are gone, and these 2 pawns are gone. If I'm able to trade these 2 pawns for these 2 pawns, then she will be in a position with very weak pawns. This c7 pawn will be alone, and this a5 pawn will be alone, and I will have a b pawn that could become very strong if I get rid of this pawn. Okay, and I know this sounds very complicated, but I just knew that I really want to play the c5 push. And let me just show you what I mean. So let's say she would do a terrible move right now. I mean, okay, let's say I go c5. Of course, I cannot do this position, but I just want to show you kind of what I mean, something like this. Okay, let's say here I could do something like this. Well, now we get exactly what I meant, right? Now we get this position where these pawns are very weak, and I will forever be able to put a lot of pressure on this pawn, and now I am just way better. Pretty much I'm winning actually in this position because I will be able to win this pawn. She has no way of defending it. And even if she was able to place a rook here or something, my pieces would just be so good and her pawns would be so weak that I would be having a winning endgame. So I knew that if I can get into an endgame and I can get the c5 push in, I will have a very good position, or at least a position that is way better than what it is right now. And c5 is also very strong because if she doesn't take, then okay, in some positions maybe I'm threatening c6. In some positions maybe I'm able to take here and get a piece to c7. So I knew that c5 is my long-term plan, but I cannot do it now. All right, so these 2 things have been checked. So I know that my short-term plan is to survive the attack, and I know that my long-term plan is to get into an endgame. What do those 2 things have in common? Well, those two things have in common that for me to get into an endgame and get into my long-term plan and at the same time survive this attack, I need to trade as many pieces as possible. So especially right now, I want to trade her minor pieces because she's having this attack against me. And if she was only attacking with her, what we call major pieces in chess, so the queen and the rooks, she wouldn't have really enough pieces for this attack. Like, it's very easy to defend against that. What's difficult is to defend when she has several major pieces that can enter the attack, and she has these minor pieces that can very smoothly join the attack as well and create even more pressure. So what I would love to do is actually to trade off these two pieces and perhaps trade off a rook, or maybe keep my rooks if I can get my rooks active. But if I can get a rook to c7 and start picking up her pawns, I'll just be in a winning position. And so knowing all these things, it's much easier to come up with my candidate moves. So of course, it's not like it's easy to have this very methodical way of thinking when you're actually playing an important chess game. You know, when you're sitting there competing, you're feeling the pressure. I didn't have this clear way of thinking. I started out by thinking, what are my candidate moves? And I'll tell you what I thought those were. The first candidate move I had in this position was to do nothing. So it was to go rook c1. This was the first move I was thinking about, so that I would kind of get her to attack me and I could at some point go for the c5 move, because I knew that at some point I want to play c5. So then having a rook on c1 is very good. So that was the first thing that I was thinking about. The second thing I was thinking about was to capture this pawn, because in chess, you always kind of want to have in the back of your mind, what are the checks, captures, and attacks in a position? So there's no check in this position, but the only capture that there is this capture. So this is, of course, also something that's very important to think about. What happens if I capture this pawn? And I was thinking about it for quite a while, and I was thinking, okay, if takes and rook takes, maybe I can go queen e3, and then when this rook goes somewhere, I'm not sure where this rook is gonna go, maybe I can go d5. But then I was thinking, okay, how would this be? I mean, if she takes here, then maybe I can take here, but then she takes back, and then this is hanging, and okay, maybe I can go something like knight here, right? This could be possible. Now I'm defending, this pawn is going to be able to be recaptured. However, she can also just defend, and like, I didn't think this was any clear at all, right? So I wasn't the biggest fan of this idea either. And it was also that we like to be able to come up with the exact forced move kind of calculation, because that makes us be able to know what we're going to expect. It's sometimes scary when you're calculating something when the opponent has so many different things they can do, because at least for me, I'm not a super grandmaster, I'm not a grandmaster, I'm not like a top level player. So I have this feeling that maybe I'm missing something. And so it's kind of nice, not that it's good, but it's kind of nice sometimes to be able to fully know what's going to happen. And so when I found this third move that I was thinking about, everything just made more sense. Now, I'm not saying that you should always go for what you can calculate, because maybe then you're just going for a move that you're going for a move that will not lead to a position that you're scared of, but that's maybe not objectively the best move either. I don't know if that makes sense. But so I'm not saying that's like always a good thing to do, but I'm just saying that for the brain, it can be sometimes a nice thing to do. I don't know if that makes sense. But so in this position, my third candidate move, after calculating taking, which I wasn't fully happy with, after calculating rook c1, which I haven't talked about, and rook c1, I liked because I saw that I'm stopping now this move e5, which I was afraid of, because now if she goes here, I can take it, and then if she takes back, I have this incredible move, knight takes e5, where the idea is that if she takes my bishop, I can go rook takes d7, and now she has no way of defending this bishop. So I'm actually winning a piece. So I did really like that, and that really made me want to play that move. However, I also realized that she can probably just go something like rook c8. And what is my plan now? Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go queen d2 maybe to defend or to threaten to take this pawn? Well, maybe then she can go queen f6 and simply defend it. And what is my plan gonna be? Like, my plan has to be then at some point to go c5. And so, okay, can I go c5 now? Well, if I go c5, then maybe she can take, and go knight takes c5. And then what? I'm just losing a pawn. So even though I didn't see anything wrong with rook c1, I did think that rook c1 probably was a move that I could play. I also didn't love it because I didn't see any immediate way of me getting a good position. So then my third candidate move, which is actually the best move in this position and I'm very proud of after f4, was to go for a move that would force the trade of all these minor pieces. I wanted to trade off my minor pieces to make the c5 push way easier, because without a knight on d7, I would always be able to go for the c5 push. If I have a rook on c1, there's going to be nothing that can stop me from going c5. There's not going to be a piece that can stop that. So the moment I realized all of this, it hit me like a ray of light, like a what's the word? Like a thunder. It just hit me. I was like, of course, the move is knight e5. It just hit me. And it's the best move in the position. Now, this move looks crazy. And this is a brilliant move, by the way. I kind of want to get the chess.com brilliancy because I like it. Look at that. Look at that. This is a brilliant move. Now, why do I really want to play this move? Because there's several things that are happening here. When I go knight e5, I'm both threatening this bishop, but I'm also threatening to basically just trade everything off. So if she would take my knight, then I can just simply take her bishop. And when this rook goes somewhere, I don't know where the rook is going to go, I can just simply move my bishop somewhere. And now if she takes here, well, then I can just take back and everything is going to be kind of hanging. All her pawns are going to be a little bit weak. And so this is great for me. And if she takes with the knight, then it's the same thing. I can take here first, maybe if I want, I don't know, or take the bishop. I don't really know. I mean, both are going to lead to the same thing, which is that I get to trade everything off. So after this move, she ended up taking on g2, which is, I think, what she has to do. And I have time to go knight takes d7. And so what is happening now is that if she moves her bishop somewhere, then I will simply take the rook and I will be an exchange up. So she has to take back and now I take back. And so I have been able to force this trade of minor pieces, which was what I really wanted. And it's not like I am better now. I mean, this position is equal. Maybe she's slightly better. But if we compare this position to this one, there was way more attack potential for her here, and I have been able to fulfill my short-term goal of saving my king. Now that has been saved, I don't have to think about that, and now I'm going to try to fulfill my long-term goal, which is to get a great endgame. So I'll just show you a little bit what happened. She went rook f5 to prevent me from going c5 because, like I said, that's my main plan. I don't want to take here because then my king is going to be more in the open. So I went a4 defending this pawn because I always want to do this move anyway, so that if this rook moves somewhere, I can go c5 and now my pawn is defended. She went rook f8. I went g4 because I wanted to force her rook to move so that I could go c5. I went f3 here to prevent her from going f3. And after queen e7, I went rook c1. You see, she's stopping c5. I am going for c5. And now all my moves are so much simpler because my line of thought is so clear. c5 is my long-term goal. And I understood that all the way from when she played this move, which was, 8 moves ago, right? So that's why I'm saying that having these things be clear just make playing chess so much easier. And I'm not saying it's easy to have these things clear, but it's something that you practice, and it's something that I think that you should practice in your own games. So her only plan here was to go e5, sorry. That's what she wanted to do before, but she would much rather have done that with more pieces. Now e5 wasn't so scary. And well, anyways, I'm not going to show you how this whole game continued. I ended up having a winning position in this game because my endgame was fantastic. I'll just jump to a later position. My endgame ended up being fantastic. And, finally, I was able to go c5. And yeah, my goal of c5 was fulfilled, but she was also able to get some pawns. And this game ended up being a draw, which was a great draw for me. I drew someone that was almost 200 points high rated, and this tournament ended up being great. But it all came from this moment with when I play the move knight e5. This was the crucial moment in this game. And the reason I knew that was, like I said before, because I wanted to really prevent an attack from this point. So I hope that this position illustrates that. We're going to do this with one more position so that you can really get the idea. And this time you can try to pause the video and try to figure this out yourself. All right, let's take this example. So in this game, I am playing against Alice O'Gorman, and she's rated almost 2000. And this was in the Chess Olympiad 2024 in Budapest. And in this game, I have the white pieces, and it's become already kind of like an endgame, or I mean, there's no queens anymore. Her king cannot castle, and I knew that in this position, it just looks like I have such a great position, but how do I continue? So I remember here thinking a little bit and really saying, okay, Anna, how do we actually try to win this game? What are my ideas? What is the plan? And let's go ahead and talk about this again. The short-term plan, the long-term plan, and what are the candidate moves. So here, short-term plan, I was immediately just thinking, how can I try to win a pawn? I mean, the first pawn that I looked at that looked very weak was this pawn. This pawn looked very weak, but also the pawns over here look pretty weak. And I knew that she doesn't really ever want to take my knight, because if she takes my knight and I can get a pawn here, this pawn is basically going to stop these three pawns from pushing. So this pawn will be an incredible pawn for me, because she will never really be able to move this pawn, as then I'm able to take en passant, and both this pawn and that pawn will become very weak. And so if I have one pawn that is controlling three pawns, then it's amazing. Plus the D and E files will be open, and her king will be very vulnerable then. And if she hides with her king on C8, well, then this rook will be stuck and will not be able to get further in the game. So I knew that she never really wants to take this knight. So already that made me feel like this was a good position for me. But long term, I thought, okay, what are my long-term plans? Well, I thought I actually quite like having these minor pieces. Like, my minor pieces are very good. Probably my long-term plan is going to be to try to put as much pressure on these pawns as possible. Maybe double rooks. Maybe an idea can be to try to really get my rooks to work. Maybe an idea can be to go b4 and a3 to really retreat this knight, and then go rook d1 and then try to do a d5 push. This could be also a long-term plan, because her rooks are kind of uncoordinated with her king still being in the center, and this could be an idea. So knowing both of those things, both short-term and long-term, one move that instantly comes to mind is bishop c4, because it's both threatening this pawn, but it's also allowing for perhaps a future d5 push if I want to do that. So bishop c4 was immediately my first candidate move. I was also thinking that, okay, maybe I want to go g3 at some point, because she might want to place a knight here, so maybe I can do a slower move like g3. Another idea could be to go h4, to maybe go h5 and get this square for me. I don't know, but that, to me, the move that made the most sense was for sure bishop c4. And I really like this move because, like I said, it's both threatening this pawn, but it's also preparing perhaps for a future d5 push with a rook d1. So here she went knight d5, which makes a lot of sense, and I went g3 because I wanted to stop this knight from getting here, and I also wanted to get some air for my king. Now my king can go to g2, and especially because she doesn't have a light squared bishop, this is very fine for me because she can never really attack my king from here. So I'll just show you how this kind of continued. She went knight f6 here, and now I still knew that my plan was to potentially both go d5 at some point, but also to put more pressure on this pawn. So she went here, I went here rook d1, and now after she went bishop d6 to threaten my knight, I continued with my idea of attacking this pawn, knight e5. And this move I really like because I'm getting both of my minor pieces into the board. If she takes here now, I will take with the pawn, and now whenever her knight goes somewhere, I don't even know where it's gonna go, I can take on d5, and then I'm winning this pawn, which is amazing. So I'm continuing these plans of putting pressure on this pawn and of trying to force her to keep this blockade so that I don't play d5. She went rook f8 here, which was a great move, and now I had to find another way of attacking, of continuing the attack. So here I maybe didn't play the best move. However, I had a clear plan, which I had had for a long time, which was to continue putting pressure on this pawn. And so I went here rook d3, with the idea being of going rook f3 and then being able to take and threatening this pawn. And my plan was that she can never go to e7 with the king because this rook on the e file is completely dominating it. And her big issue right now is once again that these two rooks are just not playing. So she went here king c7 so that she could connect the rooks, and this was a really good move. But now I have this move rook f3, and I'm immediately threatening to take on d5, and then if she takes with the knight, I'm taking this pawn, and if she takes with the pawn, I'm taking here. And this is a position that even though she's still kind of surviving, she has to continuously find the only moves to stay in the game. And here she made a mistake, which is very natural because it's just many moves of having to find the best move. So she took my knight on e5, and now immediately I realized that this was amazing for me because after going knight d7, I can take here on d5, and if she takes my knight, then this pawn is hanging, and if she takes here, I have this really great move, rook c3, which is really nice because what is she gonna do? I'm threatening right now to go knight e6 check and winning the rook, and if she steps out of this c file, then I will be able to take her knight. And if she goes something like king d8, for instance, I can go e6, and if she takes, she's losing the rook too. So she right now is actually almost lost, which is crazy. If she moves d4, I can go knight e6 check. It's a double check, and after the king moves somewhere, I can just take here. And the idea is that after this, I'm even winning the other rook, and I'm going to be a full rook up. So rook c3, I mean, she has to trade, but now I'll be able to win this d pawn. And now this endgame, even though it looks like it's not super winning, because her king is so far away as well, this is actually just a winning endgame. I just take control of the d file. Now I went check. I controlled this pawn, and my plan is just going to be to go up with the king. And you know, she tried here to come up with some different plans, but my plan is really simple, and in this position she resigned because I will be able to win this pawn. Her king is completely cut off by my rook, and she has no way of stopping my pawn from promoting, and this is just completely lost for her. So, you know, I kind of went through this a little bit quickly, but I feel like here in move number 18, this was a critical moment because I had to come up with what the plans are. And this position wasn't as scary as the other game because she didn't really have a big attack against me. This was a position that was more calm, where I knew that I just had to find a long-term way of making her weaknesses even more weak. So it's a bit different in that sense, but I really think it comes all the way from this point of finding all of these different ideas. And yeah, I'm just really happy that the game went well. And of course, I mean, she could have done other things to maybe stop all of this, but you know, both players cannot always play the best moves, because if we all did, then we would all be grandmasters. But yeah, let me know if these are the ideas that you would have thought about as well in this position. So I hope that you learned something from this video, and try to always think about what are the short-term plans, what are the long-term plans, and try to find some candidate moves, especially if a position requires to find more exact moves. Either if it is because, you know, your opponent is about to have a really strong attack, or if it is because you kind of feel like you have a winning position and you have to find the exact moves. Try to think about these different candidate moves. Of course, I think in faster time controls, you don't really have time for this, but if you play longer time controls like rapid or classical, then you do have time to find different candidate moves. And I think it's a great exercise to improve at chess. So try to find different candidate moves and let me know what you thought about this video. And Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you learned something. Have a wonderful day and let me know if you want to see more educational videos. Bye-bye!